So we'll make a start. So welcome everybody and thank you for joining us today. For those of you that are new to our webinars, we're Education Buy-in, which is an independent procurement organisation that works with schools and trusts. And our aim is to help you with your procurements. We also understand the pressures you're under right now. Budgets are tighter than ever, energy costs remain high and unpredictable, and schools are being asked to do more around sustainability. So this session is designed to help you with those challenges and prepare you for what's next with your energy contracts. So I'm joined this morning by Dave, who is our energy lead at 2x2. Good morning, Dave.
Morning.
So Dave, why is now the right time for schools to be thinking about their energy contracts?
Many schools are coming to the end of their current energy contracts, most typically on the 1st of October or the 1st of April. And these are the two big pinch points that we see across the sector. The challenge is that the energy market is still unpredictable. If a school doesn't have a new contract agreed before then, before their old one ends, they're automatically going to be rolled onto out of contract variable rates. And these rates are usually far higher than negotiated fixed or basket deals are, and they can drain already tight budgets almost overnight. It's not just about the short-term costs either. The decisions you make now, whether you choose a fixed basket or flexible procurement route, can directly affect your financial stability and your school's ability to make progress on sustainability targets for the next few years. That's why planning ahead, especially if you're heading towards one of those common contract end dates, is absolutely crucial.
Thanks, Dave. Just to say, if anybody does have any questions as we go through the webinar, just please either pop it in the chat and we'll answer them either as we go along or at the end. Thanks. So Dave, it would be interesting to see where you are with your energy at the moment. It'd be great, not Dave, sorry, the audience, if you could take part in this quick poll. So hopefully that'll pop up on your screen. So it's how is your school currently managing energy contracts? And the options are, we have a long-term fixed contract, we're on a short-term or variable contract, and we manage energy on an ad hoc basis, or we're in a basket or other. Give you a second to answer those. Okay, thank you for that participation. So Dave, can you explain how schools can really understand and optimise their contracts?
Sure. First of all, you need to start really with an energy audit. That means reviewing the school's consumption patterns, when and how they're using their energy. For example, a school might discover then that there's heavy usage at certain times of day or inefficient equipment driving up your bills. And then once you understand those patterns, you can spot areas of savings like replacing the lighting with LEDs or adjusting your heating schedules or switching off unused equipment. But more importantly, the data will help you make informed contract decisions. So if you know your peak demand or seasonal patterns, you can choose then to a contract that will align with your actual needs instead of just something that's a fit for all purpose. Secondly, consider bespoke contracts. So many schools will assume that they have to pick from the standard supplier offers, but by working with an independent broker, it's possible to design a contract that really fits your situation. So that might mean a hybrid model where part of your energy is fixed and part is flexible, or contracts that allow staggered purchasing. And these tailored approaches can sometimes deliver quite significant savings compared to the off-the-shelf agreements that would be more like our domestic sort of contracts. And then thirdly, you could explore flexible procurement. This is a bit more of a sophisticated approach where energy is purchased in smaller chunks at different times rather than locking into a single rate on one day. And by doing that, you can take advantage of the market dips and try and smooth out any of the impact of the sudden price spikes for schools. This can be mean more predictable costs over the year, which is crucial for budgeting. And that would then take the risk. So if there's any spikes out, if you're coming out of a contract and you're coming out at the highest point, then you're going to be paying that highest point for the length of your contract. And what's saying with the flexible procurement is that you'd only buy a part of your energy at that contract, so that you spread the risk out. And then finally, you can think carefully about your contract length. Do you want agility? Do you want stability? Is a 1-year deal gives you the ability to react if the market improves, but then you're more exposed if prices go up? Multi-year contracts can give budget certainty, which many schools do prefer, but they do lock you in. So if you lock in at that highest point, you're paying that point for the term of your contract. And the right choice depends on whether your priority is flexibility or safeguarding your budget against volatility over the long term. So in other words, schools aren't limited to just one type of contract. There are options that can be shaped around their circumstances. The key is to understand your consumption first, then decide which route gives you the right balance of price, predictability, and flexibility. And if you want to talk to us about any of these options, get in touch with me. I think my details are on there. Just email me at david.thomas@2by2.com. Or we do run an energy clinic every Wednesday morning, and I think that's going to start back in October. We stopped it over the summer holidays for schools.
Thanks, Dave. I was just looking at the poll results, and 81% of our audience today have a long-term fixed contract, and with only 9% on a short-term or a variable contract, and then another 9% responded with other. So the majority are in a long-term fixed contract. So let's get into the practical side, and let's look at those main contract options schools could consider.
So there's two main contract terms that schools can consider. They're fixed contracts and flexible contracts, and I referred to them in the previous question. So fixed contract is the simpler one. This is the one that's most like everybody's home domestic contract, where you agree to a price up front, typically for 1, 2, or 3 years. There are some suppliers now offering out to 5 years, and the rate doesn't change. The key advantage here is that it does provide you with your budget certainty. You know exactly what you're going to be paying, which makes financial planning much easier. And billing is pretty straightforward too, with no surprises. But there are downsides in that you're tied to that rate for the full term, even if the market falls. And in other words, so you get peace of mind, but you may miss out on potential savings if price drops after you lock in. The second option is an energy basket, and that works quite differently. And here, multiple organisations will pool their demand, and that collective buying power is used to secure wholesale market rates. And the advantage is the economies of scale and the professional management. So you'll have expert traders that will actively trade energy on behalf of the group, which can then deliver stronger value than doing it alone. And you get access to the wholesale market rates instead of, if you go by yourself, chances are you won't. And however, there are trade-offs with the basket. You don't usually know the exact price before committing, and the basket has to hedge across the group, and the final rate depends on how the energy is purchased over time. So while you benefit from the market expertise and scale, you do give up a lot of your individual control and certainty. So in short, fixed contracts prioritize simplicity and predictability, while basket contracts focus on value and strategic buy-in. But the right choice really depends on whether your school's priority is budget certainty or potentially greater long-term savings. And to be honest, neither product is a bad product. It's just whatever suits your needs that is the best.
Yeah. Yes, it definitely is. And obviously from that poll earlier, it seems the majority have previously or currently in that fixed term contract. Yeah. So, but what happens, Dave, if a school doesn't act in time?
So in time for if they'll go on, if no action is taken, schools are likely to be moved on to a variable or out of contract rate. and they are much higher than the contracted rates and can change frequently with the market, making them really unpredictable. So anytime, if you're on an out of contract rate and something goes on in the world, your price is going to be increase. For schools, that can mean then sudden budget overspends and a major headache for financial planning. It's generally one of the most important situations to avoid. And the tricky part is that this can happen quite easily. Chances are energy suppliers won't tell you that your rates are changing daily, because it's quite hard to keep up with from them. And so if you're not actively managing your contracts and your renewal dates, you could be paying over the odds without even realizing it. That's why forward planning, making sure you've secured the right contract before your current one ends, is critical.
Yeah, it is absolutely critical, isn't it, Dave? Being aware and on top of your contract end dates is absolutely crucial, and planning ahead also, so then you're not in a situation where you've suddenly gone out of contract rates.
Yeah, for an example of that, Victoria, we dealt with an organisation last week who'd been on out of contract rates for 9 months, and they had spent over £6,500 that they didn't realise that they hadn't needed to be spending because they didn't realise they were on out of contract rates.
Yeah,
So it is quite sizable difference.
Yeah, and the difference in the rates is significant, isn't it?
Yeah.
Those out of contract rates are high. So my advice is, if you're not sure when your contract ends, go and check and find out, and get in touch as soon as possible if you realise you are on out of contract rates. Dave, so beyond contracts, what else can schools do to better manage their energy better?
Well, green energy should no longer be optional for schools. It's part of the wider responsibility to support net zero targets and the DfE's sustainability and climate change strategy. By joining an energy basket, schools can often secure 100% renewable electricity, which doesn't just cut the emissions, but it also demonstrates the leadership and teaches the pupils by example. But it's not only the procurement contracts that can make change. There's small efficiency changes like switching to LEDs, improving insulation, keeping equipment maintained can save a fortune. Monitoring usage is just as important, encouraging staff and pupils to switch off lights, close doors, be mindful of heating. These everyday behaviours add up. There is an organisation that is actually will give free equipment to schools to help teach the children about that, and where they can measure the difference in their efficiencies, so that you can do experiments with the children in the class to bring into everyday learning. So that will then take out not just in the school but into everyday life. And if anyone wants information on that as well, again, just drop me an email and I can put you in contact with those. And then finally, always check contract terms. Ofgem reminds us that business energy contracts are legally binding. Schools need to be careful before signing up to avoid costly mistakes.
Yeah. For those who know me well, be aware that my background is in education and I am a previous teacher, and I have some memorable lessons, and one of them is around the energy and the monitoring and recycling as well, but getting the excitement that pupils actually gauge with energy, of making sure lights are switched off and monitoring the usage. They really were inspired by it. So if it's not something your teachers are doing, then yes, do take Dave up on his offer, so he can provide you with more information on that area to help support the curriculum. What should schools do right now to prepare?
Yeah, I suppose that's a great question. There's probably 4 simple steps. First, check your current contract and end date and know exactly when it finishes. It takes the minimum amount of time that it can take to switch on a commercial contract is 5 working days. But realistically, you don't want to be reacting. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck at that rate of the 5 days before. So you want to get out in ahead, maybe test the market a couple of times. Most suppliers will. You can get pretty much up to 3 quotes from a supplier before they before they stop quoting you realistically. So check the market and then work out the best time for you to be locking in at on those times. Decide whether a fixed contract or a basket, or if there's another route that's a better fit for your school's needs, and go with that. Like I said, neither of those are, it's not that one product is better than the other. It is fully dependent on what the school needs, what the school values, and go with the best route that meets that criteria. It's important to gather your energy usage data and your current tariff information, and you'll need that so that you'll be able to work on, do comparisons from any quotes that you get. And then, as mentioned, explore your options early. Leaving it to the last minute can often mean either rolling onto the expensive variable rates that we talked about earlier. Like I said, it takes 5 days to switch over, but if there's an objection for any reason, so a current supplier can object up to midnight the night before your contract's due to start, and that could be for any reason. And often we find that there's suppliers that go the contracts go at least a couple of days on out of contract rates because the current supplier has pulled the plug on the transfer over a couple of days before, because potentially there's a question over the billing or the account. So make sure that all of your accounts are always up to date, where everything is. And sometimes you don't have to give notice these days to switch, but it's always good to give notice, because then chances are, if there is a reason that they would object, you can have that conversation then before it actually happens.
Thanks, Dave. That's really good advice around the objections, and the examples you gave there of, couldn't just be debt on the account, can't it? That can cause the objection, and then for the switch not to happen, and then the risk is that they reject those pricing, and then you have to go through the whole process again of getting new quotes and accepting. And obviously that then could be with another different supplier. So it is crucial to make sure your accounts are up to date, and to give that notice to make sure if there's going to be any issues, about it before the switch happens. Another great point that Dave mentioned was on those simple steps was about checking your contract end dates, which we've mentioned before, which is crucial to keep on top of. We have popped in the chat a link to our contracts register at Education Buying, which is free to use once you're registered with us. It's an online digital contracts register where you can put in all your contracts, not just energy, but you can also use it for any other category, and you can start monitoring your contracts and be proactive with all your contracts. One thing I do love about this contracts register is it doesn't just have the start and end date. You can also put in a date where you want to start looking at your contract renewal. So you may decide to look at it in advance, hopefully. And you might want to put a date in there of 6 months or even 9 months before your contract's actually due for a renewal, and it'll ping you a notification to say that you need to start looking at this particular contract. Excuse me. So Dave, how does Education Buying and 2x2 support schools through this process?
Okay, so Education Buying 2x2 Energy can help your school with your energy. First, without sounding big-headed, our track records speak for itself. We've helped schools save hundreds of thousands of pounds over the years, and we really do take pride in the fact that we'll save money. So and also help you out in awkward situations. There's the energy market is a murky market, and we really do take great joy in helping organisations get through the murkiness of that market and come out in a beneficial way. And it's completely hassle-free to use us. There's minimal admin required on your end, because we'll manage any process from the start to finish and just keep you updated with what is happening. And that includes everything from your supplier queries to your billing issues, so that you can focus on running the school and just let us make sure your energy's working. Our pricing is always fully transparent and competitive with no hidden charges. And of course, you'll always have access to the expert guidance whenever you need it. If you're looking at energy solutions, we've got our 5-year energy basket, which will give you access to the competitive rates and take advantage of the expert trading. That's it. And with that, you'll receive annual pricing updates, with the first price now available 1st of November. All electricity is 100% renewable, and it's actually the purest green electricity contract that you can get, so that you'll be meeting your sustainability goals without any extra effort. And as mentioned, we'll handle everything, all of the admin with that. But then if a fixed term contract is better fit for the school, we also offer contracts because we're an ombudsman approved broker. These contracts can be tailored for your school's needs and provide guaranteed pricing for the period you choose. So whether it's a basket or fixed term contract, we can make energy procurement pretty simple, cost effective, stress free for the school. And if we take pride in that, if we feel that you have been offered a better deal elsewhere, we'll tell you and we'll advise you to take that deal. That has happened, I think, 3 times over the last 18 months, where there's been a deal that was offered by incumbent that, going through us, the school, we couldn't match that deal, and we advised the organisation to go with what they were offered, because that was the best deal. Our aim 2x2 was set up to help release funds for organisations to put back into society, and that's the ethos that we live by. So if you can get a better deal elsewhere, we'll tell you, which not many brokers will do. Also, if there's any Catholic schools or trusts with us today, then we do work with Church Marketplace, and we can help you through Church Marketplace or put you in contact with IFM directly, depending on what your need at the time is.
Thanks, Dave. We have had a good question, which I know we have come across numerous times, and it is: we are on our second fixed contract, dual British Gas. The first we managed to lock in September 2020. The biggest issue that they have found is suppliers who agree to a 30-day backs terms, and as they are a Lancashire maintained school, their invoices are submitted to and paid by Lancashire County Council, so we cannot do direct debit. So many previous brokers have found suppliers and then at the last minute said you'll have to do direct debit, which they obviously cannot do. Do you consider this element? And the only supplier who would do it, provide through the local authority, was British Gas.
Yep, we do come across that quite often with other schools in that situation. We speak direct with the suppliers. There's currently, I think we've got about 3, maybe 4 suppliers that will consider that at the moment. Often it can be dependent on how the market is looking on their day, because obviously there's more of a they see it as more of a risk, then, which is why they're reluctant, why more of them are reluctant to go down that route. But yeah, we've come across that, and we're able to find multiple options for you and have the conversations with them before it gets to the last minute situation.
Thanks, Dave. Also, just to emphasise the importance, if you are getting multiple quotes from different brokers or energy suppliers, about receiving those quotes back on the same day, so you can compare like for like. As you're probably aware, the energy prices do change day by day, so you do need to get those quotes on the same day to compare.
Could I just give an example on that, Victoria?
Yeah, please.
This week we had a school come in on Tuesday, wanting to have a quote, so we got them a quote. Then there was an announcement in the market on Tuesday about a extension to standing charges. That's stuff that's going to be increased to help increase the improve the national grid and the infrastructure, which will start from early next year. When the school came in, because the prices are valid until 3 o'clock most days, when the school came in the next day to decide they wanted to go with that supplier, their charges actually increased by £8,000 a year because of the difference in the thing. Now, that was nothing that anything that happened. It's just the market had shifted that much because of the price. So if you are comparing from one broker or one supplier and you got the price on the Tuesday, and then on the Wednesday there's going to be that difference, but you wouldn't be able to get the price from the first day. So that's why it's really important to get everything on the same day if you are comparing. And also it just shows how much the market can shift.
Yeah. Also, obviously, schools do have the issue of having an approval process and governance. So we do advise and recommend that you get an initial benchmark quote and then take that to your governors. And there's a percentage, Dave, that you always say around that.
Yeah, I usually say about 8% at the moment. If you can, but it'd be whatever you're allowed to get really, and it gives you the most flexibility in that. And again, that can be dependent on where you're at with the with the supply, and so if how many days in between that you're looking for the two tenders.
Yeah.
Two pricing exercises.
So that's the tolerance on the movement of the price, isn't it? That 8% margin. So if you were to get approval from your governors or your trustees that you would accept a price within that 8% range, then you would have the authority to do that, to then accept the next quote that you got, if it was in that range. Thank you, Dave. So to wrap up, we'd love to hear from you. So please do take a moment to respond to our next poll, so we know which energy solution you're most interested in. So the poll states, which energy solutions are you most interested in? Joining the energy basket, exploring a fixed term contract, happy with your current supplier and still under contract, and you're just exploring your options and not ready to decide yet. Okay, we just had a quick question come in. So do you agree movable start dates? For example, I agreed to a British Gas contract initially in July 23 for October 23, and they allowed requote just before start, and it was significantly less. Do you look at changes during agreement to start date? And also, do you help voluntary controlled church schools to fill in the VAT, to reduce the VAT and remove the levy because we are covered under the Charity Commission?
Sorry, could you repeat that question for me, Victoria?
So there's two parts to that. Do you want to talk about the VAT part first?
Yeah, so the VAT, yes, we do that. That's the easiest one to answer there. And then, if I understood rightly, he was asking, do we agree if a price is agreed in July and then potentially could be requoted in October
before the contract started?
Yeah, if it's been signed, the suppliers very rarely will requote the contract, and the school, if they wanted to come out of the agreed contract, would be liable for the price of that contract. That is that's the usual in the market. Yeah. It's very rare that they would allow that.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. So just to let you know our future webinars. So our next one is on the 7th of November, where we'll be discussing below threshold tenders and also about collaboration. We've just put that link into the chat there for you. So if you're not signed up and you want to sign up to our next webinars, please use that link. And thank you very much for attending, and we hope you found it useful this morning. We will be following up with a copy of the slides later. Thank you very much for attending, and I look forward to seeing you on our next webinar.